Hello, bodyslam.net YouTube subscribers, and welcome to Flashback Friday here on the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. Thank you for coming back for another Flashback Friday. We very much enjoy bringing you guys older episodes that maybe you're not familiar with, just some new content for the bodyslam.net YouTubers. If you've been with the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast for a long time, this might not be new content to you. This might be some stuff that you are enjoying reliving as we have aired these shows in the past. Don't worry. We are going to bring some exclusive new content, but first we want to make sure that all of you bodyslam.net YouTubers are familiar with our body of work and what we do, what we bring to the table. We're so happy to be part of the bodyslam.net family. We appreciate Cass and Trent and the whole team just welcoming us with open arms, making us feel part of the team. We very much appreciate it. So shout out to those guys. Thank you very much. If you're not following us on social media yet, what the heck are you waiting for, guys? The show is at PBW Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I specifically on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I am at Chris Belcher 24. Make sure you give us a follow. Subscribe wherever you download your podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to the bodyslam.net YouTube channel. I know that they would greatly appreciate your support for all the other shows as well as the content on their website. Believe me when I tell you, it's great stuff, something you don't want to miss out on. Now, on to our regularly scheduled program. We drop brand new episodes of the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast right here on bodyslam.net's YouTube channel every Monday and Wednesday. So make sure you're checking it out. If you're a fan of old school, if you're a fan of new school, there is something for everybody on the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. My co-host and myself, we just cover everything for you. There's something for every wrestling fan. So that being said, make sure you check out our shows. But here on Flashback Friday, we got a special treat for you. Last week, I introduced you to my brother from another mother, Jared Justice, who is a long-standing co-host on our podcast. He made an appearance this past Wednesday on our Wednesday wrap-up edition, where we cover all of the current news in the world of wrestling. So if you want to hear his take on that, be sure that you go check out our most recent episode. We talk about all kinds of stuff. MJF's cutting-edge promos, all the stuff with Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, the hard-hitting match with Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston, just some great stuff. So you want to hear his opinion as well as mine and our other co-host, Mr. Andy York. You want to hear our thoughts on that stuff? Make sure you go check that out. That being said, I introduced you to him last week, and this week I want to bring in another new character. If you follow our regular show, we did a fantastic interview with Hunter Knott and Rosario Grillo, better known as TSF. We've dropped that interview this past Monday. Go check it out. If you don't know who those guys are, you'll be a fan immediately, I promise. But we're going to keep the interview train going, because on today's Flashback Friday episode, it is a sit-down interview that myself and Jared conducted with the one and the only, the blue chip, Bo Tayvian. That's right. I met Bo at a Coastal Championship Wrestling show in Nashville, Tennessee. I was back in February of this year. He had just injured, I think, his triceps. I haven't gone back and listened to the interview, but we talk about it. That being said, though, I met him right after that. He was doing color commentary for the show. So we got to talking, and he volunteered to be on the show. Here he is. We got him scheduled for an interview, and he tells his story about what happened, and just talks about his life through the world of wrestling through a pandemic, navigating through all of that, as well as his nutritional supplement store that he has, some workout tips. He and Jared go really far into the weeds on that kind of stuff. So it is a wide range of topics in this interview, something that you don't want to miss. So hope you guys enjoy this Flashback Friday edition with the one and the only Bo Tayvian. All that being said, though, man, Jared and I are pleased to welcome Mr. Bo Tayvian, the blue chip, in the house. How are you, brother?
What's going on, guys?
Man, it is a blast to have you here. You look a little different than the last time I saw you.
Yeah, a little bit. Facial hair's there. And
you know.
A lot has happened.
A lot has happened. Bo is actually on the IR right now, but we'll get to that a little bit later. A lot has happened since the last time I talked to you, but that's okay. We want to make sure that we catch all of our listeners up on who you are, what you've done in the wrestling business, and give everybody an insight on the guy that we just BS'd with for about 20 minutes, who is an absolute blast. Let me go through just a bit of Bo's background real quick. He was trained, a guy by the name of Roderick Strong. You guys might know him. Bo got to train with him. Bo he hails from Tampa, Florida. He's a very versatile kind of wrestler with his size, strength, athleticism, a 3-sport athlete. He's had formal training in jiu-jitsu, ranked number 10 in the United States in powerlifting for the 242-pound class in 2007. And if that wasn't enough, the Florida State super heavyweight bodybuilding champion in 2018. Man, that doesn't even crack the surface of the wrestling business. That's just all your background stuff. That's a long list of accomplishments, man. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. On another podcast, not the other one we joked about. Hate you guys. Can I drop their name?
You can drop their name all you want to. I hope they're listening.
If I drop their name, can we get Jared a new outfit?
No. So, I mean, you live in Florida, and he's been making fun of my shirt the whole time.
Hey, and by the way, I'm a true Floridian. I was born in Orlando, so I can make fun of that. For those listening to this, you're thankful because that shirt is hideous.
That's amazing.
If you're watching it, you get to see it. So, anyway, yeah, where were we on my background? Oh, yeah. So bucket list, I'm all about it. Try to do anything and everything I can. And I guess you could say I accomplished a few things. So
you've done quite a bit. I know Jared and I were talking before we started recording, and he was blown away by your by your bodybuilding championship and those kind of things, that background stuff that you've been able to do. Talk about how you got into the bodybuilding world a little bit and what led to that championship in 2018.
Yeah. So when your first word is ball as a child, I played sports my whole life, and then come college time after playing rugby freshman year. I kind of basically, after not really liking it that much because it's rugby, it's east-west tackling rather than north-south. Didn't really play football, and yeah, so like the hits are different, you're not going to get the pounce per se, which is one of the moves I do. The physicality is different. It's definitely stamina of soccer plus football contact and all that, but it just wasn't for my liking. And after that, I was just working out because I had nothing else to do, no sports after high school. And once I called the rugby career, it became, okay, now you're in the gym lifting. I happen to genetically just advance pretty easily. So it kind of captured me, even though in high school, I was one of those guys that I would lift after practice. Back in those days, coaches didn't want you lifting if you're a baseball player. Or it was on that turn where they started to accept weightlifting more.
Right.
Gosh, back then I didn't know anything about nutrition like I know now. So yeah, call it. My first show was 2005, and I placed third. So right out the gates, I was in the mix. So that's kind of, bodybuilding was one of those fun science projects for me, and I was learning everything I could.
Well, when you place that high in your first event, the bug bites you and you're like, oh man, like maybe I'm a natural at this.
Yeah. So I actually have a stance on that. I don't like when people win an overall or they win first place right away, because then they're spoiled and egotistical. Whereas if you're in the mix or in the hunt, say the third that I got, then it really turns it up and you're hungry for more, right. more so than a winner right out the gate. And I think that's kind of what happened for me.
All right, so not to jump ahead too far, but as far as the wrestling business is concerned, we kind of talked about your background before wrestling. Just to I dropped Roderick Strong's name a minute ago because that's a name that a lot of our listeners will know. And a lot of our listeners aren't familiar with Bo Tayvian, and we're going to get into that. We're going to get everybody familiar with you. But as far as your career in the wrestling business is concerned, I'm not asking you to name drop people, but let's sidebar and let's name drop some people. Maybe that some of our fans might be familiar.
He literally is. And not to be a dick, but I'm about to say a dick thing. No.
That's true. That's exactly right.
Not to be racist, but I'm about to say racist things.
Exactly.
This is what people do when they preface things.
If you preface it by saying, I'm not trying to, but I'm really trying to. Just talk about some of the bigger names, man, that you've shared a ring or a locker room with along your journey.
So, Chris, I'm really not going to talk about Jared's hideous shirt throughout this podcast, but that is one hideous shirt.
and I'm not going to call you alfalfa the whole podcast, but that is a hideous hairdo.
Bro, don't make fun of the bohawk. You have more bohawk out. I just have it isolated.
Very true.
All right. So the long and short of it, Lex Lovett was my main trainer. Roderick Strong was his student, or there at the same time. So I was in the ring with those two a lot the first 3 months of my career. And then that was 16, 17 years ago. I worked for a year and a half-ish, almost got paralyzed. Was finishing up my college degree, so I left it. I didn't like a lot of there's just a lot in it, whether it's politics or selfishness, things like that. There's a lot of those aspects in professional wrestling that didn't sit well with me as a person. And even to this day, people still are kind of like, yeah, Bo, you're not like a normal dude. Cause like Chris, you and I sat next to each other in Nashville. I was like just a normal dude, just talking with you.
Yeah.
And I prefer to be that way. And as a grown, mature adult here, 17 years later, once enough is enough. And the business endeavors that I'm chasing, if they don't see fruition, then I have no problems walking away again.
Sure.
Obviously, I'm passionate about to come back after almost being paralyzed. But
tell that story real quick, not to sidebar too far.
Yeah,
I was going to ask.
Sure. It's I don't even know who does the move now. I've seen it a few times. I still cringe. And actually I don't have heat with the guy that, so my very first match ever, I took the move as inverted pile driver. I took it fine. He got the pin. So
like what happened to Stone Cold?
Well, this is actually worse because I'm to blame some of it too. I was about 225 at the time, and when I faced the guy again, I was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll take it again." I already took it once as a rookie, and now here a year or something later, yeah, man, let's run that back. And it's an inverted pile driver. Your legs are over the head. You tuck your nose up under his hiney, and hopefully there's enough space to protect yourself.
So it's kind of like a One Wing Angel, sort of. Kenny Omega, kind of.
Well, I mean, so Kenny Omega brings that to the front. You literally stay on the backside, and the guy goes to his knees. You're over his back like Alabama Slam,
and then he drops you. So
he drops to his knees, and you're done. Yeah.
Okay, so
right. I'm the one over there hugging him. So when I went up for it, I assisted on the leap. So I'm actually known as heavy as I am for going up pretty light, which is cool. But in this case, I went up way too light, went up and basically over, and somewhere when my hair is even shorter, you can still see the knot. And dude, this is VHS, and I VHS back then, and I still have the footage of literally dink, and then I went into all the workers came out from the back.
Gosh,
so if it's not pre-planned with that, it's kind of like, oop. So yeah,
right.
Thankfully, I have pretty big traps from my powerlifting days, and I did not break my neck or anything. I think I had 2 or 3 matches after that, and the crowd at that time, you're talking 2003, 2004, whatever. And that was when all the flippy stuff started. And literally, as a worker, if you were not killing yourself, like the crowd wasn't buying it. So I would lift, there's a guy named Torture. He's like legit 400 pounds. I would lift him, throw him on a fall away suplex and get a small pop. And I would do it again. And the crowd, they're like, oh, it's a work. Like, no, man, I picked up 400 pounds. Big 400 pounds where you couldn't get my arm around him and threw him. And I was like, man, this is like, I'm not going to kill myself for a hot dog and a handshake.
Right. Absolutely.
And this was in the days of MySpace and LiveJournal, so you had no coverage. Like Chris, I could literally send, or Jared, since you haven't seen much of my work, I could literally send you clips and highlights. Back then, you had to queue up your VHS, convert it, mail it to somebody, So
right.
Go ahead, Jared. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like, with all the flips and everything that we see, like, I think more so on the AEW of the big brands. WWE is guilty of it too. But what do you think? I know TNA and Mexican wrestling kind of started some of that. Do you think it's toned down? Like you said, back in those days, it was like doing flips or you don't get pops. Has it toned down some, or is it still?
I like that question. That's I want to say maybe like quantitative. It might actually still be the same, but qualitative, I think guys are going even bonkers, like even more. Because now we have crash pads. I don't remember a crash pad 17 years ago. So guys can try stuff that they might not have tried before. And then also in the day and age of, as we just talked about, highlight our link, like literally even me in my downtime from my injury, I'm watching so many different wrestlers and you're not reinventing the wheel. You're just taking and putting your own stink on it. So I think with so much footage out there on YouTube, I think a lot of guys are able to see what other guys can do. And that's, so it's more and more. And I think there's definitely Cirque du Soleil feel to a lot of it now. And it's now that the curtain's been pulled back and we know that everybody's working together. And if you listen to Jim Cornette too, it's kind of like, are we actually out there like sports entertaining, or are we out there for a wrestling match? And so I tend to decide just based on my frame. Yes, I can do some flippy stuff, but I mean, I'm older now too. I'd rather just power based. And I'd rather tell a story. So if your flip makes sense for the story, I'm all for it. If it's, gosh, this might come back to haunt me, but if it's the Young Bucks doing 18 different flippy stuff into one, I appreciate their talent because it's amazing, but it's kind of story wise, I'm like
I'm glad somebody other than me said that. I'm just saying.
Well, whatever year, the WrestleMania where Brock Lesnar did the shooting star press, that was the first time I'd heard of crash pads, just to kind of give everybody a reference. But I was just listening to Jim Cornette earlier too, so I'm glad you mentioned him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people can go so many different ways on him, but at the end of the day, you have to appreciate, how much wrestling he truly knows.
Yep. No doubt. We grew up with Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling. For those of you who are listening that might not know that, Jared and I are from Eastern Kentucky, which was one of the biggest hotbeds of Smoky Mountain Wrestling during their run. So that was a blast. You guys were talking about flips and, the work and, that kind of stuff. And Bo, you mentioned watching wrestling in your downtime. We're going to backtrack and get to a little bit more of the beginning here in a second, but I want to go back and piggyback on what you just said. You're an athlete, that athletes watch tape. You just said, you're watching wrestling, not necessarily because of your injury, but as someone in the wrestling business, how much current stuff do you actually watch? Or if none, if you don't watch any, that's totally fine too. What's kind of your go-to if if you're studying your craft, basically?
Man, you saw my face as you're asking that because it surprised me, right? So I'm at CCW. It is a wrestling school, Coastal Championship Wrestling in South Florida. And it's always amazing to me when new wrestlers or wannabe wrestlers come in and, hey, what do you actually watch? They don't watch wrestling. Hey, what sport did you play? They don't play sports. I'm like, wait, what is the basis for this? Because this is way too, it's physically demanding and mentally demanding. If you don't have a love for it, it just won't stick. And
sure.
I'm just like blown away at how many times somebody kind of, it looked cool. Oh, you look cool. You watched it one time, like at a WrestleMania party. That was it. No. And even current workers, they're actually students of the game. Hey, did you watch this last week? No. How and this comes from my marketing degree. If you're not with it and watching current product, how do you know how to advance your product? And that's why Vince watches everything. That's why I promise you AEW is looking at everything. Tony sees almost every tweet. It's one of those things that I actually pride myself. If you guys, Jared doesn't even know me, doesn't care about me except for my beautiful hair. So, but anyway, if you would always see, like I when I was healthy, I would typically start my morning on my morning bike inside watching any, whether it's YouTube I have subscriptions to IWTV. I have subscription to New Japan. I have anything and everything wrestling I can get my hands on. That to me, it's important. And like I was watching, so I'm 240 heavy, super heavy, whatever you want to call it in wrestling. And I watch guys like Enzo to maybe grab an animation or something. So no matter what skill level, even I'll watch two green guys go at it, and I might pick up a move that they were attempting to do or something. I studying film, the fact that we have access to so much is amazing as a worker, but it also can be a pitfall for the fans because they're quick to throw you up on Botchamania. They're quick to slow things down and like see how far you missed. Like some of these guys doing the 450. Oh, you missed. Okay, buddy, you go up to the top rope. Which Chris, I don't think did you go to CCW before the one I met you at?
Nope.
Did you go? All right. So the other time in Nashville, I actually do the coast to coast, which for 240 to go up on top of this rope to jump across 18-foot ring, that's a lot of weight in the air and all that. And
sure.
Man, it's nerve wracking. Yeah, it's people don't understand how nerve wracking it is to be up on the top rope. First off, your ring is 4 feet above the ground. Secondly, now not only the ring, but now three exact rings of the ropes. You're 3 tiers up on the top rope. Now you're 4 more feet. So you're literally 8 to 10 feet in the air. And then I'm jumping really high to go 18 feet the other way. So when they say high risk, man, I can't tell you the nerves and shaking that happens. And I'm somewhat of a daredevil. Obviously, I'm a little too smart for it now in some ways and dumb in other ways. It's like, I'm willing to do that. I don't know why.
Well, I feel like that's the mindset you have to. I'm not in the wrestling business, but I feel like that's the mindset you have to have. You know what I mean?
Jared might be asking something on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
So one question that I would love to know, because I've never actually got to ask anybody in the wrestling business, and you kind of brought it up. Me and Chris back in the day. Me and Chris back in the day, we would get on a trampoline when we were young and just beat the crap out of each other. But as far as ropes go, what does it feel like, man? And how do you acquire that skill to jump up on that rope, whether it's made of rope or cable or whatever the case may be? How do you learn that? I can't imagine me being able to balance myself like that.
So, we briefly talked about the crash pad. So for any listener who doesn't know what a crash pad is, it's literally about 6 to 8 inches of foam. You would see it mostly in gymnastics tumbling places. And it allows you to basically have a cushion for when you're practicing high risk maneuvers. With that, almost every school that has one, they tend to have high flyers and coaches willing to push the envelope. If you watch Tough Enough, that's how you practice most of your high flying landings first before you put a person under it. So in one realm, like you just alluded to, you guys as childhood, there was no safety involved. You just dropped an elbow and hope you didn't truly hurt your buddy. So now we have
we didn't care.
Now we have dummy bodies, we have crash pads, things like that. So at a true school, you literally don't have any attempts on a human body until you're ready and safe. That being said, for me, even getting the wild hair saying, hey, I want to do coast to coast. First, I messaged Jake St. Patrick, who at CCW is one of the few that does a coast to coast, and he only does it in hardcore matches. So for anybody out there, if you know somebody else does a move and they're in your same circle, ask them, A, what they think about it, B, if you can use it, if it, whatever. And he literally was like, he's like, what? He's like, Bo, you want to do coast to coast? I was like, well, I was thinking about it. He's like, man, I want to see you do it just because I want to see you do it. So he green lighted me to do it. So then it became a thing. I pulled it out in Nashville. I've done it 3 times, hit 2 of them. I pulled it out on my comeback here. I do one thing I pride myself on is my jumping ability. Even as a bodybuilder, people are like, whoa, this guy can fly. I'm 5'9" and I could touch rim at 240. So
dang.
Yeah. And it's one thing that white boy can jump, whatever. Speaking of the names that you asked about who I've been in the ring with, etc. The Shane twins, if you remember the Hooters commercials back in the day, or Sonny's Barbecue, whatever it was.
Okay.
Jack guys. They dumped me and my tag partner quickly. That was a squash. Antonio Banks, aka MVP. Before PC times, we literally at NWA Florida ran a White Boy Challenge. So he literally just like mauled me, ran through me, kicked me in the gut, back Kapora kick, 1, 2, 3, and then he was on to the next white guy.
Right.
So MVP,
That's
I
funny.
appreciate the busted nose still to this day. I was in the ring with you. You are the man. Like honestly, he's a big locker room presence. He's a big dude. He has years in the game, and what he's done coming back to WWE the past couple, I guess the last 2 years, he's more
2
relevant.
years, yeah.
Awesome, just awesome. So those are kind of the the names that I was in for a small drink, and back then you only worked what's around you, and you were only given opportunities based on word of mouth, not so much like even now. I have no qualms about it, man. I'll email somebody like, hey, do you have a spot or any interest in using me? And then you have so much access to so much more now. And again, like I said, it's very easy for me to send 3 clips to somebody and be like, oh, we need a big guy. Okay, cool. Let's go. Let's talk.
For sure.
But Jared, as far as practicing, I mean, that's what schools are for. Usually what happens is you get one of the, like for me, I get one of our smaller guys first, more bendy and all that. And if I'm trying to work something new, I usually just grab him, just manhandle him wherever to whatever position. If it doesn't work on him, I don't do it.
Gotcha.
And like, I'm not picking on him. Like Skater Chris is like, wait, are you always picking on me? He's like, no, man, you're our lightest guy. Like I was like, and in return, I'll take whatever he wants me to take if it won't kill me. And that's kind of the trade is in the industry. You literally are, can I use your body for this move? Yes or no? Okay. And does it make sense? So you just kind of come up with ideas, and then you try to find a way to protect the other guy while making it look like you're not protecting him at all.
Perfect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Belcher, and with me is my brother from another mother, Jared Justice, and the blue chip, our special guest, Mr. Bo Tayvian, is in the house with us. Bo, we have to ask you the question that we always ask any of our first-time guests, because this wrestling podcast is for the fans, by the fans. And at the end of the day, we're all wrestling fans. We wouldn't be here if we weren't. So what drew you to professional wrestling as a young fan? How did you get bit by the bug, so to speak?
So like kind of like what Jared talked about, man. I remember jumping off the top of my dresser onto my bed, elbowing my Bart Simpson doll.
Yeah.
Like I had practice then. And Bart Simpson had really hard eyes. If you ever saw that doll, do you remember?
Oh my gosh.
It was the big eye, like, and those eyes hurt my elbow, man. so
That's hilarious.
But my earliest recollection was I used to watch, I think it was ESPN in the afternoons after school with the Patriot and maybe 1, 2, 3 Kid.
Oh, wow.
I think was 1, 2, 3 Kid or Dynamite Kid. No, not the Dynamite Kid from. He would have been
the Kid or Lightning Kid.
The Kid.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is that Sean Waltman?
Yeah.
No.
Yep. Oh,
is it really?
Yes. Yeah, sure is. 2-time WWE Hall of Famer.
So, dude, man, I remember just the Patriot and getting these little action figures of like, I think that like just any like little action figure that weren't even like true action figures back then. They were like almost Nerf things. And, I mean, you're a fan, Chris. I see your background there. You probably had some of these things too.
Yep.
But
will continue to have all the things.
I do have the whole
Jared's
WWF Hasbro collection, so you know.
Jared has them all too.
My wrestling figure collection does not.
I was gonna make fun of his shirt, but he has action figures, and I don't know, whatever.
So funny. Go ahead.
My fondest memories as a kid literally was when it was on ESPN. And it was the Patriot and 1, 2, 3 or the Kid, and those two stick out in my mind. Younger in high school, definitely Benoit and Guerrero.
Oh yeah,
like those two.
I feel like as a wrestler, how could you not pull something from Benoit and Guerrero? You know what I mean?
Well, and it was the first time where the non-bigs got a chance.
Sure.
Because they're so technically sound.
Now,
the 5'9" guy had a shot.
Did you watch their stuff like in Japan when, Benoit was Wild Pegasus and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So again, let's talk about technology, right? So at that time in high school, you only had what was on TV or what you and your buddies put together for the pay-per-view.
Sure.
And then now YouTube, yes, to answer your question, yes, I've gotten the chance and the opportunity to watch it now, even with Jericho, and the masks that they used to wear, things like that. So yeah, as a fan of true wrestling and a fan of those guys, I've now gone back and educated myself further on their beginnings. But as a high schooler, no way, I didn't get a shot at seeing any of that.
Yeah, for sure. That makes total sense. So coming up in the wrestling business, you mentioned, a long history of not doing anything wrestling and then being able to get into the wrestling business. You were trained, you mentioned Lex Lovett and Roderick Strong earlier. How did you make that transition from all the things that you were doing and into the wrestling business?
At that time or coming back?
Either or, because you talked about making a comeback as well. So kind of touch on both if you can.
So after rugby in college, one of my buddies in the dorms would walk by or something. I was like, man, where are you going? I think he had his gym bag or something. I just at that time, anybody walking the halls, I would just blurt out whatever and just talk to anybody. And so he was like, man, I'm going to wrestling practice. I was like, dude, the gym's the other way. Because at USF, we literally had rolling mats and things like that in a wrestling club. He's like, no, like the WWE style. I'm like, oh, really? He's like, why? Would you want to? And so basically, Jerome Hendricks. That was actually. I'm sorry, my timeline is wrong. He mentioned it, and then another guy in my dorm, Jeff Valcor. There was at the time Sean Pasco. He's a big manager now. He put on weight, and he's an obnoxious manager as a heel still to this day, which is fun. It's great because I remember going to Zephyr Hills, which is about 45 minutes away. Bob's something. It was a bar that had a wrestling ring in the back, and Jeff Valcor was a ref at the time. He's like, "Hey, Bo, if you want to go, you can ride with me, and we'll check it out." Obviously, everybody knows I'm an athlete and look kind of like a wrestler anyway. So Sean ran me through the ropes a little bit. Oh, to touch back on Jared's question, how do you toughen up to hit the ropes? Literally, if you watch Toughen Up, the ropes hurt, man. A lot of schools have the high spots ring, which is a vinyl wrap around steel cable. When I went to Puerto Rico, I was caught off guard when trying. They asked me to do the coast to coast, and this is unveiling a lot for the fans. I was not quite certain the feel of the ropes, so I actually hopped up before the tapings and did a few jump across without the full layout. And there was way more. I'm a heavy dude, so there's way more give and not enough resistance. So the one of the guys who was going to take it for one of the moves is like, you sure you can do this? I'm like, yeah, let me do this a couple more times. A dry run to make sure, like the springiness was just so different. I'm like, man, it was a beautiful layout. Like the ropes to me looked so beautiful as far as presentation, like true ropes. Which is harking back to at Tampa with Lex Love and Roger Strong. We literally had a wood ring where the frames were wood, is plywood the other way. For those not in the know, most rings nowadays are metal all the way across, and then you run two by fours, not 2x4s, but 2x6s. They're 18 feet long the other way, and then you have like half an inch to an inch of matting. There is no spring. There is no spring. It sounds like it, but it's a recoil from the metal and the wood. But in Tampa, if we gave a big heavy suplex, we go through the plywood and then have to go to Home Depot. Legit. But hey, Lex like, all right, suplex, and we had to go Home Depot after I suplexed him.
Wow.
What's up, Jared?
Me and Chris attended a show one time, and we were talking about the rings and all that stuff. And there was actually, who was in there? Was it Mabel and Earthquake? Or who was that? It was two very large men.
Yep, it was Mabel and Earthquake.
So a section of the ring broke, like the mat. So they couldn't go over to that part of the ring anymore. And I was just curious, like of all the shows that like you run or that you've been involved with or that you've wrestled, have you seen any freak accidents like that happen? Like just something crazy that then you kind of have to adapt to the situation?
Well, not me specifically, but there was the instance I was just watching it. And again, if you watch everything you get your hands on, somebody was talking about how they would have had an amazing match had the top rope not broken. And it changed, like they were flippy flopper guys. So without the top rope to do some stuff, it changes your entire match.
Oh,
and
wow.
so that's also why, as a worker, the first thing you do when going to the ropes is grab the rope, because if the rope gives and you don't have something to hold on to, you're gone, and not in a good way. But as far as me personally attending, I mean the Big Show and Lesnar thing, that was awesome in Orlando. I was not at that. That would have been cool
Right.
to see it the first time when they set it up for that. Yep. But there are instances on certain rings at the walkthrough and at the setup. If for instance, the apron isn't covered enough by the padding, we kind of warn the workers, hey fellas, don't bump to this side. Or on your walkthrough, it's always important to get there kind of early. No different than any other sport or anything you prepare for. The walkthrough, if it's a foreign ring to you, I usually ask who made the ring, and then I try to ask if it's plywood, the flat wood versus the planks. And I think in your instance, Jared, I think that would be the flat wood. That actually bumps really soft and sounds amazing, but you do run into, it sounds amazing, and then the bumping is actually nice. One of our low boy rings has it. Low boy is the one without the high, and it's for lower ceiling venues. It's one of those things where when it sounds loud, it looks awesome and sounds more painful. It's part of the show, which is great. But then as a worker, if there's enough movement in those pads, man, it's a softer bump. I could take bumps on some of those all day versus some that are just like straight up cement. And you're like, oh man, that one, I don't want to. Let's do mostly brawls and strikes. No big bumps today.
I had always wondered, and it just subconsciously, and it kind of just clicked because I'd never thought about it. But why the wrestlers, and you'll still see Charlotte Flair do this, but like at house shows especially, it seems like I've noticed, just like you said, the first thing they do when the match starts, they'll grab those ropes and they'll kind of tug on them. And I always wondered why they did that. I thought maybe they were trying to stretch their muscles or something, but it just never clicked.
3 things. One, tradition. Right. If they carried it or they're paying a tribute, like if you guys watch AEW, Butcher does that stompy thing. That's in tribute to one of his coaches. Have you seen it where he does like the big spread out stomp? That's in tribute to somebody. Like Pablo Marquez hits one ring and goes to the other and does something. One, yes, you get test the tension if maybe you weren't there. Or for instance, Charlotte, she's usually main event. The ropes can loosen up as well. So it's your only chance to truly grab one while not working to see the tension. Not that it affects you too much, but if it's not, there's like a certain, from so many reps, there's a certain feel. And then if it kind of catches you off guard, for instance, when I went to Orlando, the ropes were skinnier and visually they were bouncing more and more than what I was used to. And it threw me off. So I had to, it's kind of like golfers, man. You just take everything in and account for everything. But stretching, yes. Tribute, yes. And then getting a feel for the scenario. It's kind of like even I always kind of, depending on what happened before me, I still kind of look down at the canvas as well. The canvas should be clean, but maybe something was left over. It might cause you or your opponent improper damage. Things like that. Just, you need to respect the ring. And that's why we all wipe our feet on the outside apron as well.
It's a really good peek behind the curtain. And Jared, I think to add to Bo's point about the tribute, I think Charlotte does hers as a tribute to Rick. I think Rick did.
Rick did it too, all the time.
I think Rick did a little bit of that too. So I think that has something to do with it too.
And honestly, some guys are not that cerebral. They just do stuff. It looks cool. Oh, moving on. Unlike that shirt, man.
If you're ever at a show and you're wrestling, and
I will bring you a shirt, brother.
And you see somebody in a ridiculous Hawaiian shirt doing this at you, it's me.
Well, first off, I need to know if that's you or the 14 other guys you outfitted with your other 14 shirts.
Okay, good one. All right.
Oh gosh. Oh shoot, that's funny.
I got him at a good price, okay?
So for those listening, before we came on, Jared enlightened me as to how his wife picked out his outfit. She didn't.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. So I don't know how to transition out of that, but I'm just going to do it anyway. Bo, when I introduced you at the top of this show, and I've thrown your graphic up a couple of times, your persona, your character is the blue chip. Talk about how you developed that character, and not just the character, but the persona, the presentation of it, the gear, the music, the fan interaction, just what goes into the blue chip Bo Tayvian.
Oh man. So 16, 17 years ago, I literally was all about the Goldberg and Lesnar. I was a big traps guy, big athletic guy. So I literally wore the shoot style, UFC style tights, which now on my comeback, I went to the more modernized pro trunks with a good physique. And then you and I, Chris, were discussing that off the air about kick pads, because as Bo, that's part of initially in my design. I was going to do a lot more kicks, but also it's kick pads and things like that. It's ways that you can add extra flair to your look and look more athletic. Traditionally speaking, 16, 17 years ago, I still had the boots. I had the high boots, the white ones, kind of similar to Bret Hart. And Robbie E., or Robert Stone, when he came through, he's like, man, Jack guy like you needs to stay traditional. I was like, okay. But, anytime somebody says their opinion, I still, in my head right now for Bo, I was like, all right, modernized athlete. People at first glance say I'm the guy that looks like a wrestler. Take bodybuilding away. I'm that traditional, big trapped, strong looking dude. And I can actually move. So as an athlete, I was like, well, blue chip prospects, they have all the tools. And even The Rock used to be called the blue chip back in the day as Rocky Maivia. So that's kind of where the blue chip came from. Blue is also one of my favorite colors. Just sticking with the theme. Everybody seemed to wear black. I was like, let me wear blue. So that being said, going into theme music, I was watching All American, and there was a cool song. And nowadays, you have to be careful of copyright.
Sure.
And as CCW continues to go on YouTube, we have to be mindful to not get our shows pulled for copyright. So one of my buddies actually does music, and I was like, hey, man, I want a slow build up. I kind of want, as a face, I kind of want an upbeat thing, get everybody kind of pumping going. And I literally just at first toss up, wrote this long poem song thing, sent it to him. I was like, artistically free to use whatever you want, but I want you to say we are not the same, because I really wanted to convey that nobody's like me. And so he took it, ran with it. It's an awesome song. But how it played out, even in Nashville, which you guys know that demographic better than me, I also suited up in black and gold after watching one of the Lakers games. I saw the blackout uniforms.
Yeah.
Jared, have you seen those? So
yes,
it's really cool. So when I saw that, I was like, and in my shoot job, I literally had a couple of clients sign, like I do training nutrition as one of my shoot jobs. Anybody can hit me up, whatever. There's a plug. Whatever.
I'm actually going to ask you about that in just a second. So
sure. So basically at the time I was thinking of a new outfit, I came into more money than I expected by having like 3 or 4 clients sign on all at once. I'm like, all right, let me get this blackout outfit for my match in Nashville. And it was black and gold. And then when I came out and, with my alfalfa Jared hair, my bohawk. Nashville at first, I faced Agony, and watching it back several times. I watch it for technique. I watch it for what I could improve. I watch it for what the crowd was doing, where they turned, things like that. I'm a baby face, supposedly. Mm-hmm. High five the crowd, blah, blah, blah. Agony does this clap thing. He's supposed to do it once to mock the crowd. He did it twice. On the third time, and me wearing gold and black and the high boots, I heard two people say something like, "Get the dancer." I'm like, man, is this Magic Mike time or what? I was like, they think I'm a go-go dancer. This is what? and you guys might know the Nashville people better than me, but I was hearing all sorts of stuff. I'm one of those types that's like completely silenced, or I'll hear something. If you watch it back, somebody's like, "You lost the transmission." I threw a punch and I talked to the fan. I was like, "How you like that one?" And like when you're in the moment, it's kind of cool to interact, especially on the independents. Now, if it's a TV taping, sorry, I gotta stay. But man, sometimes in the indies, that's why people like house shows more. When we go back to having a crowd, with house shows, there's a little bit more leeway and flexibility for the workers. But as far as just the general vibe, I think it's very important for guys to wear professional gear, look the part, pay homage to the past if you can. Man, there's so many guys that just wear T-shirts or their basketball stuff. And it's you, Chris, and you, Jared, all three of us are sitting here right now. And literally on some indie scenes, all three of us are wearing exactly what the guys in the ring are.
Yeah.
Including that god-awful shirt. For instant heat, baby. So here's the thing. Like literally, like look the part, be the part. And I'm all about that because like these, and that's kind of why I left 16 years ago, man. I paid good money to Lex Lovett after. So that was the thing too. Prior to Lex Lovett going, man, we're hopping all over the place. But
that's what we do.
After the Zephyr Hills thing with the referee, I also went down to Steve Kern's Hard Knocks when it was still in Tampa. Sat there. I talked to Test back when he was alive, when I was a bouncer. And he talked about Hard Knocks. Almost everybody in Tampa talks about Steve Kern and Hard Knocks. Later FCW, later NXT. It all starts through there. Awesome. Nothing bad to say. But when I talked to Steve privately about, I just didn't have all that money up front. But he's the one who pointed me at Lex. He said, "Hey, this is my guy. He might work with you." So I appreciate Steve doing that. In fact, a year or two later, when I was out of the business, Steve used to work out at the Bally's that I worked at, and he and I used to talk casually and not always about wrestling, thank goodness. Because sometimes, man, when you're always in it, yes, we love it and we can talk about it for days, hence these podcasts, which is awesome. But also sometimes you just want to, if I see another wrestler and we want to talk about football,
sure.
Alex Ocean and I are like, in my opinion, as close of buddies as we could be for anybody friends with Alex Ocean. and he and I talk about exercise science, working out, and football. We don't really talk about wrestling too much.
Right.
And I think he kind of likes that about me, that, hey, man, let's not talk wrestling. Okay, cool.
Sure. That makes sense.
So that plays right into where I was going. I'll tie it into wrestling a little bit. You talked about your whole presentation and how you look like an athlete. So I am usually run about 210 to 220. I lift weights 5'9", same height that you are. But whenever Chris was telling me about you, I was like, who is this guy? So I looked you up and just put your name in on the Google machine, and you popped up, and I said, my God, that guy is a mammoth. But you're the same height I am. I lift weights, but I don't eat right. I drank pop, drank Gatorade. And it takes such devotion to put all that together to not have a gut. Okay, yeah. So what can you tell just your average Joe that's listening to this, and maybe somebody in the background's listening, they're interested in weightlifting and fitness. What can you tell us to get us started? And legit, I may make fun of your hair, but I may hit you up about nutrition after this show's over because I want to know.
Man, I mean, honestly, it's fair game as wrestling and podcast and entertainment, right? Me and you picking on each other is great entertainment, in my opinion. That's why we're doing it.
That's true.
but on the real, I've been, as I said, I've been competing since 2005. One of my real jobs, I do people's nutrition and things like that. Above all else, it's consistency. Like you said, there's so many people that go to the gym 5 to 6 days a week, but 85% of it, honestly, is nutrition. So even me being injured right now, I've without being able to go to the gym, my routine has changed. Like I'm no longer doing my morning cardios. I'm no longer doing my nighttime cardios. Literally eating whatever we want to eat. And like obviously muscle memory and having so much mass, I don't look as bad as the average Joe if they were to do this for 2 to 3 months. But in your case, the first thing I always tell people to eliminate is if it is a non-diet drink, get rid of it. I drink a lot of diet soda. People are like, oh, it's acidic. That's awful for you. Fine. But that's my only vice. Fine. We have so many flavor options now on diet foods to where we can at least restrict our calories, even if we're not sure if like the red 40s and the different dyes might be doing harmful stuff. A lot of us will get cancer anyway. It's a crapshoot. But eliminate the empty calories. Like anytime you're drinking a non-diet drink, those calories are nothing for you. Gatorade is easy nowadays to switch to Gatorade Zero. Increase your protein, and if you increase your protein and your fiber, those two things will have you. The typical American wakes up, they skip breakfast, they get to the office, and they all of a sudden have a candy jar. The candy jar skyrockets them into more cravings. They might go nibble again. Then they go out to the big lunch with the company, the corporate company, or they go to fast food, grab it, get back to their work. Then afternoon, they're kind of tired. They get an energy drink. Then they get candy or something to spike the insulin levels again. This is a typical American. And Jared, you're shaking your head like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people will do that.
I'm guilty.
Right. And so a lot of people do that. And then they come home and it's family time. You might do fast food. You might not have time. And all of a sudden you're eating more. And then you're sitting on the couch watching wrestling, but you're also still eating. Me, I come home, I sit on my bike and I'm watching wrestling. And then after that, I hit a protein shake. So like the difference of physiques is literally the difference in what you put in your mouth more times than not. And then also workout intensity. So a physique like mine, after a certain level, you at 210, who as an avid lifter who lifts 5 times a week, eventually your body adapts to that. So what are you really doing? Are you still going in and plugging 185 into the machine on all your lifts? Or are you going progressive overload? Are you going to 190? If 2 months ago, were you still doing 185? Because if you're still doing 185 2 months later, you didn't progress. You didn't force adaptation. And people are just so it's preventive maintenance, which is great. Exercising at any level, walking for 30 minutes is better than nothing. But it's one of those things where you have to always look to force yourself to adapt, get uncomfortable, and build consistency in the good habits. So many people have consistency, but it's in all the bad habits. You go home, you drink your beers, you go out, you sleep 2-3 hours, and then you go out 3 nights in a row. You don't, get enough sleep. And then all of a sudden you're dragging ass and you have no inadequate food. And you're a mess. You're a hot mess. And then, oh, well, I had a good workout. Okay, cool. Man, for 1 hour, you try to rewind 4 days of bad work.
It's good stuff, man.
One thing that I've done just recently, and then I'll shut up about weightlifting, I promise, Chris. But one thing I've done recently,
good, man. This is good stuff.
And honestly, like this is outside of wrestling. I mean, it's truly what I was most passionate about. So anybody who needs to hit me up for basic stuff, I do make a living off it. But man, at the end of the day, we got to help fellow humans.
Right here. So Jared, before you ask Jared, right here. At Bo Tayvian on Twitter, at Bo_Tayvian_3.0 on Instagram. He is Bo Tayvian on Facebook as well. So anybody that's listening that wants to hit him up, you just heard him, feel free to do so. Jared, go ahead, finish your thought. Sorry.
No, I mean, you're fine. The one thing that I've done recently that I neglected, and it goes back to just, it's so hard to find out information because you look things up and everything tells you something different. But I neglected my legs. And so I did not lift legs for a long time. And now it's almost like whenever that I took, I did like 3 rounds of pro hormones back in the day. And you could see results. And so that's why that I've kept on lifting. Even though I have a gut, I've seen a lot of change in my body from what I was. I used to weigh 145 before I ever touched a weight. I was skin and bones. But anyways, I've started doing legs, and I've noticed a big difference, just like I said, like a spike in testosterone. What's some, do you recommend cardio? I saw you shaking your head about the legs. Some people say do cardio before, some after, some don't do cardio at all. What can you tell us just for a simple average Joe that's, just basic?
All right. So like literally in your 45 seconds, you covered so many things I've big time. First off, no, it's awesome. But because this needs to be talked about, we have so much information out there. There's so much wrong information, right? So at the end of the day, you could go online, get an opinion, but it's like 145-pound, like skinny dude telling you how to get abs. It doesn't count. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so at the end of the day, you want to find somebody who's lived it and has gone through it and shows consistency in it too. You don't want that guy that suddenly like blew up to 240 and then he's back to 180 and he never held it consistently. That guy's not going to tell you how to be consistent. Right. In regards to the legs and the later age, the issue with legs is it's literally what we use to get us around. It's also one of the most painful things to force adaptation. You literally have to beat them up and then walk around sore for 4 to 5 days to get them to change to a high level. And then you throw in age, you throw in crickety ankles and knees and lower back issues. All of those things say, hey, buddy, you're too old for this. Maybe you shouldn't do so much leg work. And that's where it gets hard. And when things get hard, we don't want to do it. So, but the benefits of the compound movements, bench press for any older guy with shoulder issues. I don't like the barbell bench at all. Just use dumbbells so you can just drop it, or you can be in the free motion. When you're in a barbell, usually your inadequate side might take all of the brunt, and then you might pop your pec or shoulder, whatever. So deadlift with proper form, that works your legs, your lower back, your upper back, your arms. Me being the guy that just tore my bicep in the ring, if you're deadlifting, the over under is typical grip so that you don't drop the bar, but I highly recommend over. That's a over grip so that your bicep on the underhand is not exposed to possibly pop again in your older age. What people do when they finish, they don't use their arms as hooks. And with a crazy heavy weight, your bicep could pop on that. But focus mostly in the 8 to 15 rep range for almost everything. If your joints ache a little bit more, go to the 12 to 20 range, and that's going to alleviate the rep range dictates the strength. If you're in the 4 to 8s, you're looking at super strength, but you're also stressing your joints. Whereas if you get into the 12 to 20s, you're going to chase muscle hypertrophy, and then you're going to basically spare the joints because you're not handling a 1 rep max and things like that. You're handling what your muscle can handle. But the benefits of full body exercise and pushing the limits a little bit is great. And then your question as far as cardio, before or after, cardio for any and all purposes, unless it's sports performance, should be after your weightlifting. Weightlifting uses your glycogen, your stored carbohydrates. If you do cardio at any intensity levels prior to, then you don't have the same glycogen storage for your weightlifting. Opposite of that, when you think you're burning fat on a full glycogen tank, so say, for instance, you eat 2 sandwiches, you go to the gym, you hop on the cardio for 40 minutes, and then you do your weights. You basically burn 0 fat because your glycogen's loaded up from your sandwiches, and then you think you burned fat, you wasted 40 minutes, and now you're in weight training with less glycogen, which you burned, not fat, but you burned your stored carbs going into your weights, and now you don't have as good a weight training session. So carb up for your weight training. Your weight training is going to pull your carbs back down, and then you go do your cardio, and now you're burning fat.
That's good stuff, man. That's great. So
I could go on all of that for days.
Again, if you guys are interested in some more details about all of that, hit him up, Bo Tayvian on Facebook, at Bo Tayvian on Twitter, and Bo_Tayvian_3.0 on Instagram. Yes, sir.
One more thing. Don't chase weight loss. It drives me nuts. So, Jared, you focused on weight a little bit in your conversation. You at 210, 5'8", 5'9", that could look so many different, like me and you are the same height. And if you were 240 sitting there in your Hawaiian ugly shirt and me at 240, you'd be like, man, we're both 240. How does he look that way versus me? And that's my point. So weight loss, me at 240, like I'm down to 228 since the injury because I haven't worked out. And everybody's like, oh, you look skinnier, you lost weight. I was like, yes, because I lost muscle, man. I'm not working out. Like if you're not working, and this is when people, I want to get bigger, but they're not working out. Like, well, how? No, you have to force adaptation. So if you want to get bigger, but you're not, we lost him.
That's good. He'll come back. No, he'll come back.
But yeah, it's one of those, if you're not working out hard enough, then your weight your weight's going to fluctuate up and down based on your composition of mostly being fat. Whereas if you work out super hard and your weight goes up while on a strict diet, you actually might be adding muscle while losing fat. And a lot of people hate hearing that, but tried and true, if your nutrients are proper, it is in fact possible.
I got you, man. That really is.
Jared's gonna have to watch this now because he missed that whole segment.
No, that's fine. He'll definitely catch that, man. All right, time out. Let me text him and let me see what's going on. That way we can add him back in. Let's see.
He got bored, so he left.
He got bored. That's it. I'll edit this in.
I was gonna say you could probably just cut it.
Yep.
Get us some time back. Actually, that's if we keep going longer, it's good for you to create 2 episodes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. We pause, so you're good. Just hop back in there as soon as it lets you. Okay. He lost his internet.
Yeah. Well, what I was saying is you could probably cut in and create 2 episodes out of it with that as a stopping point.
Possibly. Oh, here he is. There he is. He's back. Oh, F. Hang on. Let me try this. Dude. There we go. Got to get it back.
I was going to say, I can look at the top right now without being annoyed by the shirt.
Oh,
right. I'm like a 90-year-old with these computers, man. I just got this thing off Chris, and I can't operate these. Are we recording?
Is it?
I mean, yeah, but I'm going to cut it.
He's going to edit it, but what kind is it? What kind is it?
Chris, tell me what kind it is. Fuck, I don't know.
It's an HP.
No, Jared, I'm with you, man. If it's not Apple, it's like the interfaces and weird options now.
Yeah. Apple I can do, like iPads, iPhones, but this shit, yeah.
Yep. And I used to be the other way. I used to be that DOS guy that I hop in the
I could hack people back in the day, man.
Right.
I could make my cousin's CD-ROM drive go in and out.
Man, now if you give me Windows 12 or whatever they're on, I'm like, what is all this app-looking stuff? I don't like apps.
Yeah.
That's
Chris knows
hilarious.
his shit, but I don't. So.
First off, this is an iPhone 6 still, boys.
Wow, that's awesome.
I get so much crap.
Holy cow. All right, I'm going to pick it back up. Wind
Jared,
down.
we were on nutrition. You missed all of that, so you have to watch the episode, actually. Sorry.
Oh, I'm actually going to go back and listen to it. I was already going to do that. So.
All right. So we're going to wind down. Bo, I'm going to throw to you about your injury and about commentary, and then we'll kind of wrap up. All right. All right, here we go.
And whenever that you talk about, whenever you talk about commentary, I'm going to ask one more question, like I told you about promos, and then I'll shut up and you all can do whatever.
No, man.
Work it
Ask
in,
whatever, because the main thing I like about your side of it so far is it's not at all like the podcast I just did. Like there's some overlap, but I like that it's different.
Good,
okay.
Good deal. All right.
My fans don't want to watch me tell the same story every time either. All three of them.
You got like 2. Oh, okay. You insulted yourself before I could.
I'm very good at that.
All right, here we go. All right, fellas, as we kind of wind this thing down, we put a bow on this episode. Bow, like how I did that bow. That's funny. Woo! Dad jokes for days.
There's reasons for gimmick changes, and that might be one of them.
Bo, you mentioned
unbelievable.
Oh, that's funny.
I can make fun of myself, buddy.
That's funny. So you talked about your bicep injury.
Briefly.
Briefly. And you don't have to get into that if you don't want to. You talked about doing it in the ring. But when I met you, you were taking your first stab at commentary. And you have expressed to me that you've gotten a couple other opportunities at commentary going forward and things like that. Talk about just some of those opportunities and what really intrigues you about the world of commentary.
Well, I definitely think for me, and I'm funny, right? So like NFL draft is coming up on Thursday. I don't know if you guys are football fans or not.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I'm one of those weird guys, I guess, no different than how I watch wrestling, different than like a normal fan. I like the extra details. And then in some commentators can really add a lot to a show, and then others can take away from it. And so with my injury, I knew I still wanted to stay relevant if I could.
Sure.
And then I also in the world of professional wrestling, if you have a wrestler on the mic who's also part of the roster, you can do so many different insights and different angles if you want, and things like that. So I honestly just wanted to open up opportunities that way. And then like the insight that you, Chris, and you, Jared, that you might have on me, just watching me on clips, is going to be different than me in the ring with Agony. So if you,
Sure.
all three of us go and watch an Agony match, you two can talk about what you've seen. I can talk about what I felt. And so those dynamics are always cool. And that's no different than like Tony Romo being the predictable expert. Sometimes that, to me, when he does that, annoys me. Other people love it.
Just a sidebar. I started when it first started, I did get really annoyed with it, but then I kind of was like, wait, this is really cool to be able to have this kind of perspective. But like you said, Bo, you can't call that if you didn't live it or if you weren't there.
And I think maybe my annoyance with Romo's case is if he presents it as to what he's reading rather than this is what's being so absolute, this is what's going to happen.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
if I like appreciated him reading it as a quarterback versus him insisting, hey guys, this is absolutely going to happen. And so that's my only Romo quirk on that. But the commentary, I asked if I could stay involved. I felt like I could contribute to the product by not being annoying. Most people know me. I'm a straight shooter. I don't really flinch, whether you're picking on me or I'm picking on you. It's all fair game, and honesty above all else, right? So it was one of those things that now I had to start studying the commentary side. And then I literally went to YouTube as a color commentator, what are you supposed to do? And Chris, I know this is your wheelhouse, and that's why you sat next to me. You're like, man, this. And what did you think sitting next to a rookie on it? I mean, you got to hear some of it.
Well, honestly, like I've watched wrestling my whole life, and I pay more attention to the commentary, especially now than I ever have before. But that was my first time actually like being like live in the moment, trying to call it myself in my head, but listening to what you and Dan said, like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, or that's an interesting perspective on what they said. Oh, what Bo said this in this situation, I like this. I'm going to make a mental note and say, oh, that was cool the way he brought that out. So those kind of things.
Yeah, and it is interesting. Everybody's different styles. I think you're probably a little bit more fluid and more energy than me. Based on the few things I've seen on your podcast. I'm a very flat, and the CCW magazine guy actually said that. He's like, man, Bo is harkened to old school where it's just like, bam, this is it. And that's it. And then my other thing was, and you like between matches, Jared, it was kind of cool because Chris got to listen to me and Dan go back and forth. My whole thing as a supporting cast, I didn't want to step on Dan's toes. So I would always check with him like, hey, how's that? He's like, honestly, you did a little too much play-by-play there. I'm like, oh, crap. Because Dan's awesome at play-by-play. Like he's phenomenal at play-by-play. And then I'm just trying to, and he would throw me a bone like, hey, Bo, what do you think of this? And then sometimes the action would pick up too much, and then I couldn't. And Chris, I'm sure you were trying to figure that out too. It's like, wait a second, there's a dead spot here. And sometimes, even as a fan, when I'm watching stuff, I like nothing happening. I want to embrace that moment. And so sometimes I'll sit there, and then Dan and I got a chance to broadcast on Saturday in Port St. Lucie. It was Andy, who's my tag partner, Johnny Walker, who is Andy's current foe right now, who's normally on the mic, really good color. So he was ringside, so I got a chance to commentate on my tag partner's match with Dan. And what Dan wants from us is, with me being a face, and he's also a likable character as one of the owners of CCW, Face and face is a little weird, whereas much like me and Jared playing off each other, face and heel on the mic is kind of fun. And in this case, I've been the heel towards Jared. But it just adds that element. So Dan's like, man, I had no complaints about it. He's like, I just wish sometimes you were a heel. I was like, man, you guys are the writers.
Yep.
If you tell me turn it up a notch and go heel, I will.
Sure.
But right now, everybody knows Bo is just a nice guy that shoots it straight. And commentary for me in Orlando with Division Pro, I had brought up, hey, man, I'm kind of from my podcast background and just how I explain things. I like to give the details but also let others shine. So that promoter is like, hey, while you're still injured, we'd like to have you. And again, it gives us an extra tool to bring me into stories.
Yep.
Now I can tell a story or take a quip at somebody in the ring, and all of a sudden they watch the playback and they're mad at Bo Tayvian, which is awesome.
Yep.
It's no different than like in Orlando, we do weigh-ins, and that's an extra tool for storytelling, and that's where I got my arm annihilated. I didn't get to wrestle the guy because he destroyed me at weigh-ins.
Yeah, that was a nasty chair shot, by the way. That was
The shot heard around the world. Jared, you should see it, man.
I'm gonna look it up. That's for sure.
I got so many texts after, and like first my wife, she's like, well, at least it wasn't your hurt arm. I was like, most definitely was my hurt arm. And then my mom blew me up the next morning when she saw the clip. She's like, what was that? So we did our job, and F you, Death Row Jethro.
That's it.
So I have one final question. Just everything, this is the first time I've talked to you, just before the show and now, and kind of I'm in healthcare. So when we had talked about, you just talked about an injury that you had, and then there's another injury that you had that you had talked about, and that the healthcare side of it, and making me think. I do X-rays and CTs and MRIs, so that automatically intrigued me whenever we talked about kind of your injury. When I'm also a big fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And so your injury, like I said, kind of reminded me of his. And one thing, like you all had talked about commentary and things like that. Promos is what I want to ask about. Stone Cold got hurt. It was kind of like a similar injury. It sounds like to kind of what you had. He had to rely on promos. WrestleMania just happened. They had the rain come down, and they had these wrestlers who were doing promos that have never done unscripted promos, according to everything that you hear. I mean, I wasn't there, but that's what everybody's reporting. Is it easier to do a promo if somebody has written it out for you? Is it easier to do it off the top of your head? What's more fun? Just tell us about it.
So on so many levels. In WWE, they have writers, they have Vince, they have script. And while those might have been improv, I'm fairly certain there were certain talking points and or a few lines given to them. Specifically, if they weren't this is me on the outside, just assuming things. I have zero facts on that whole situation. I wasn't mad at any of those promos they cut, and it was impromptu due to the rain. So Drew McIntyre is probably one of their better ones. He's been working on his promos forever, and he always speaks from the heart. From my improv world, even my improv class in college, and by all means, I'm not the greatest actor or anything like that, but I have a off the top of my head type functionality to where if you, Jared, say, hey, Bo, I want you to talk about this, 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 and this, and you give me no lines, I could probably do it. If you give me 5 lines and in a short time ask me to like really verbatim give those and then deliver that you want, unfortunately for me, that's probably not going to be that good. And one of the things for me in this downtime, first off, my arm injury is nowhere near Stone Cold's broken neck. So let's clarify.
Well, your pile driver injury. Was what I was referring to.
I just walked away then. I wasn't worried about promos. I'm like, I'm out.
Okay. I was just curious.
But it's but that does come to present day with my bicep injury. It was strained in Miami, and then Death Row took care of it with a chair. I had surgery. I'm doing research projects in Virginia. things like that. But also studying character development and promos. So much like you're talking about, I'm literally watching different promos to see what I can gather and see how they deliver things. Robbie Stone is amazing at his promos. He's the manager on NXT. And he came for a seminar and he put some things in my head. I don't know how much I want to talk about this on the air outside of saying, basically, I feel there's a lot of improvement I could do as Bo Tayvian as a character. Maybe in a different role to where, in certain regards, I think we talked about this before we started the recording. As a face, there's rah, cheer me on, I get beat up, watch for the comeback, and you love me, I love you, high fives. and in that regard, outside of creativity to get over with your comedy or your cool t-shirts, things like that, or your general look and just your charisma on your comeback, I think sometimes with the new age wrestling, I think when you're able to speak more as a heel and just shoot directly and not have to please everybody, I think that's more in line with who I am.
Okay.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of good improvements and changes coming in the realm of Bo Tayvian as we make this comeback and as we rehab this injury. Man, as we wind this thing up, tell everybody where they can find you on social media, and do me a favor as we kind of head out here. Our listeners who might not be familiar with Bo Tayvian, who might want to learn some more, give us a couple matches we might be able to find on YouTube of yours that are some of your favorites, maybe, that you might recommend. And this is of course pointed at Jared, not just our listeners.
It's mostly Jared who has no idea who I am. He loves my alfalfa hair. It's the bohawk, bro. You're gonna shave your head in a little tighter.
I'm not, but
so full disclosure, I didn't even have this in until we queued it up. I was like, all right, let me go put the bohawk in.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
And then Jared came.
I didn't have this shirt on either, and I was like, I gotta get my ridiculous shirt.
I'm not sure what I want to see more now that you talked about your lack of working out. The Jared or the Hawaiian Jared?
From like right here up, I look pretty good. Didn't hit my stomach, and I'm fat. So
those other 14, are they also the same color and print?
No, they're pretty different.
Oh,
I mean, they're all ridiculous, but I mean, they're different.
All right, next time wear blue, bro.
I have one over there.
Give me something to cheer.
Oh,
I could consider you a fan if you're wearing blue, but
I'm not your fan. I don't want to be considered that.
I only have 3 fans, guys. It's his girlfriend, his mom, and my wife.
Oh, good grief.
That's the second time he's used that. Once was off air.
That was not on the air. Now it is. And now my wife is like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's hilarious.
Anyway, on social, where was so CCW Alive. Episodes, man, had you text me this, I could have told you. I think it's
my bad.
Yeah, I want to say 6, 10, and 22 or 20. Either way, if you watch all the episodes of Coastal Championship Wrestling, which you should, especially commentary, the commentary I did for the Brian Cage and Casey Navarro match, people text me that they liked that, so that was cool.
Oh, I dug it. I listened to it. I dug it.
Yeah. Well, I think you were there. Did you leave at that point?
I was already gone at that point, but I went back and watched it.
Yeah. So Dan and I did well with that match. Also, just because Brian and I have had a few different talks, mostly because man, he tore his bicep, so he graciously has been nice to me about my own bicep injury, and
that's
kinda,
awesome.
We're not best friends or anything like that, but he was professional enough to say, hey man, stick with it, stay patient, and I appreciate that from Brian.
Yep.
That match was awesome. It was the consummate cat and mouse. I'm going to play with you until you're really dead.
Yep. It really was.
And Casey Navarro is such an amazing wrestler. He really is. That was awesome.
That was really good.
Yeah, so go to Coastal Championship Wrestling on YouTube. You'll see plenty of those. As far as 16 years ago, I don't even know where that VHS is. Twice I moved, I made sure to put it somewhere where I wouldn't lose it. And I think I lost it. So, it's one of those deals where it's not with all the other tapes. It's where I put it so I wouldn't lose it. Right. So if I do find it, hopefully I convert that to DVD and we can all have a few laughs at Botchamania or whatever.
I actually just Googled you and went to videos just to see what matches would pop up. And it looks like you against Andy Foster at a CCW event was I got like several hits for that. Is that one that you would recommend?
So Andy is my tag partner now.
Okay.
At Summer Glory, I was CCW's new toy in 2020. I signed on and I took care of Summer Glory Battle Royal, finishing Andy to finish. And then our first trip to Nashville, he and I unfortunately became the main event. So Summer Glory gave me and him, he after I eliminated him from the Royal Rumble, he stayed. He looked me in the eye, shook my hand, and I gave him a one-on-one match in Nashville. We were supposed to be mid-card. It rained, so our whole card got thrown off. Our main events were inside and more of a hardcore match. Chris, this was before we went inside there. We were outside in that parking lot.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. So the rain, because at the time Nashville said that because of COVID, they didn't want that many people inside.
Sure.
So they kind of opened up whatever with the pod sitting and the testing and things like that. So Andy and they turned to us, they're like, hey, you guys going to have your match? And I'm like, bro, I flew to Nashville. I'm going to do something. And they're like, do you want to do a hardcore match in the warehouse or do you want to do it in the ring? I was like, in the ring, of course. We watched Super Crazy and Pablo slide around and I thought they were just selling how slick it was. Dude, the paint, we had brand new canvas with CCW printed. The paint was coming off like tomato can. Literally just red flying everywhere, puddles in there. We squeegeed it, and me and Andy go out there, and one of the agents comes over and is like, all right, boys, 5 minutes, take it home, strike some punches. And I looked at him, I was like, our whole match was going to be power moves.
Wow.
You're fucking 6'5", 270, and I'm 5'9", 240, and we were just going to go at it out of respect for each other, but also take it to each other. And I was like, dude, you were going to pick me up. I was going to pick you up. Two agents like, be safe out there. So our ref, Amy Veronica, she's holding her hands on her head like this the whole match. Just watch, like every time he went, I picked him up like 2 or 3 times, and they're like, I can't believe what you guys did in the rain there. I was sliding everywhere. It was like, were you selling? I'm like, no, it was legit. It was legit. So slick. So that was, anyways, I beat Andy twice.
That's on the record, people.
So finally, long and short of it, he's my tag partner. Awesome dude, love him. But the match to watch would be me versus Agony. That really showcased some of my athleticism, and Agony and I told a nice story that you don't really see anymore, where you're tearing down a body part.
There you go.
And you still got some power moves and things like that. It was a good story. And then WWC Puerto Rico, that was episode 22 or 23. It was a pretty quick match. The commentary Spanish, so I still have no idea. It sounded like they were putting me over. Great.
You can only hope, right?
I mean, honestly, if I win and I'm a face, I hope you're saying I'm amazing. If I win and I'm a heel, I hope you're saying I'm amazing, but I suck. I don't know. No, I mean, at the end of the day, check those out. There's some tag matches. I want to say 2, 6, 10, and 20, 2, 6, 10, 22, or 20, like whatever. That. Anyway, if you just watch all of Coastal Championship Wrestling.
I mean, I'm telling you, like, I recommend it. You guys need to check out Coastal Championship Wrestling on YouTube. They're live every Tuesday night, and it's great stuff. Also, make sure you are checking us out on YouTube every Monday and Wednesday. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you get a notification every time a new episode drops. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at PBW Podcast. We go live after pay-per-views as well, so make sure you tune in for that. Buy a fancy t-shirt just like mine and a couple others at prowrestlingtees.com/PBW Podcast. And if you forget all of those things, we've got a fancy little ticker down here that tells you everything you need to know. And all of our podcasts, if you're listening in a traditional audio format, they are all over wherever you find your traditional audio podcast. Guys, that's going to wrap it up. Bo, man, we cannot thank you enough for hopping on the show. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you guys for having me. Division Pro, I know for sure on the last one. If you find Division Pro on YouTube, 14 minutes in, if you really dislike me the way Jared dislikes me, you can watch me get hit by a chair again and again and again. I got hit by a chair 4 times and my arm was destroyed. It's worth a watch.
We will actually, I'm going to go dig up that video. I'm going to share it all over our social media. That way that everybody can see it. So they know, so that they don't have a,
Can you record me laughing at him during the match? Oh, got him.
Yes. Do a voice dub over of Jared Bad Shirt Justice freaking out.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. So, Bo, again, man, thank you for being on. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you guys for letting me tell my story again. Maybe on the next one we could just I'll review a show with you guys. That's fine.
There you go. All right, we will have Bo
on.
We'll have Bo on again next week. Though one of the head guys from CCW, Nelio, is coming on the podcast next week. We're going to talk all about the CCW show Lucha Mania 2 that's coming to Nashville May 15th. So you guys don't want to miss that interview next week. It's going to be awesome. Yes, Bo.
The fun thing about Nelly, he likes to watch a lot of older, like 80s, 90s wrestling. So if you guys are into that, man, hit his brain up. He remembers so many weird things.
Yes.
That's fun for you guys. I'm like, what happened? Oh, okay. Like, where's the highlight? He's a good encyclopedia for some of that stuff. So by all means, I'm sure you guys will reminisce on some childhood stories. He is the owner of Coastal Championship Wrestling. If you're in South Florida, check it out. If you're on YouTube, check it out. I'm Bo Tayvian on there for now. And hey, I had to do it. We're an hour plus in. I had to say maybe something, maybe not. Who knows? I don't say anything. Like me, hate me. Hopefully you were entertained. Jared's going to wear an awful yellow shirt next time. Cost him 15 cents. You cannot buy it because it's awful. He can buy plenty more.
But I'm not selling it.
Again, bowwrestlingcrap.com. Wait, that's where I sell my medical tape from my wrist or something, and Jared's shirts. We'll go on a co-op there. We'll make 28 cents. People will tell us close your site down.
I'll do your CAT scan next time you get hurt, and I'll laugh.
But wait a second. On the real, the MRI, man, you get to watch people be uncomfortable for 30 minutes.
Yes, it's very fun with people like you.
No, it was dude. For my arm, I'm sitting there and listening to clanging and banging. The guy's like, "You okay in there?" I'm like, "No, good. You got 29 minutes."
Somebody told me the other day. I said it sounds like there's monkeys in there banging and clanging on stuff.
So the guy chimes in a little bit more. He's like, "You good now?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Good. 27 more minutes." I'm like, "Just shut up." I was like, "Don't give me a countdown anymore. Just let me fall asleep." I'm like in this position, like the worst position ever.
Oh, shoot.
And now I get a dream of Jared when I fall asleep in the MRI machine.
And my shirt.
I can't unsee that.
He's moving. He's having a nightmare. Trying to wake up.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Chris, take it home, man. This is too much.
Listen, I'm going to reel this sucker back in. We are going to take it home. For Mr. Bo Tavian, the blue chip. Again, man, thank you for being on here. For my brother from another mother, Jared Justice, I'm Chris Belcher. We are signing off. Bo will be back. Jared and his awful shirts will be back at some point in the near future. All right. I'm Chris Belcher. Thanks for checking out the PipeBomb Wrestling Podcast, and we will catch you guys down the road.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.